Let me just.
All right, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us for this knowledge share session. So Enrique has very kindly offered to present web accessibility at GitLab, which is a topic that I know that many of us are really interested in and excited about and passionate about. And I know this has been a busy week for everybody, so appreciate people joining and listening to this, and especially Enrique for preparing the material, because I know that the last few weeks hasn't been easy. So thank you for that. So with that, I hand it over to Enrique to walk us through it.
Thanks, Shikar. Thanks again for setting up this. Like, this is a great idea of just like having everyone at least once a month, uh, talking about things that we are passionate about. So that's really, really cool. Thanks everyone for joining. Hello. So yeah, this, like, I'm gonna talk for a little time this session, this knowledge sharing session about web accessibility at GitLab. So this is a topic that is like near and dear to my to me, because it's like in my opinion, one of the best ways as a front-end engineer to embrace inclusion, doing what I like the most, that is just like working with tech. So yeah, let's start. Let's see. First, like, what is this session about? First, I want to point out that it's not what it's not about, and it's not an introduction to web accessibility. If I went that route, we would probably spend the next 40 minutes talking about basic principles that are required to make web applications accessible. But then I really wanted to focus on knowledge that is very context specific to GitLab and to a GitLab application, issues that we already have in the app, and that I think that can help us like day to day in the work that we do. However, like, if you are like just getting started in this topic, it's okay as well. You can. I have like some resources that you can use to learn the basics of accessibility. First place, like, I want to share. Sorry for that switch, but I want to share the accessibility main page of our front-end guidelines. I think like other engineers have done an amazing work documenting accessibility best practices, sharing resources to external websites where you can learn more about it and learn about other tools. So if you're just like getting started, this is a great place to be to enter. Nevertheless, like, we are not going to be talking about very complex things. Not that I know a lot of complex things about accessibility. I also consider myself that I'm just getting started. But I do want to get like to focus on like using some tools and just like thinking about how we can integrate accessibility in our workflows. Nevertheless, like, I think that it's good to have like to start with some clear motivations. So it's like just like we can link why we care about something with the action of learning about it. And we have to start like to understand like why web accessibility is important. And the first thing is that web accessibility is a right, at least like in some countries or group of countries like the European Union and the United States. So there are like laws that enforce that digital tools should be accessible to everyone. They are like basic tools to for day-to-day living. And also, web accessibility is probably essential for people with some like physical disabilities, but I think it is useful for everyone. Like, if you have like a web application that is designed with color contrast in mind, it's probably like easier to to use it in a place with a lot of with very bright lights. Or another example is that you may be in a place with a very slow internet connection. And in those cases, it's good when your web application is using networking resources in a very efficient way. So it's just we are getting everyone is profiting from having an accessibility mindset while implementing web applications. So this is the core topic of this session. It's how you can help making GitLab more accessible. And we're gonna split this session in 4 main topics. Probably the main and most important one is that you should get some awareness of how you can identify accessibility issues in the application. If you don't know, if you can see the problem, you cannot fix it in the first place. So this is something that you learn how to do by learning about the accessibility best practices, which is something that we are not really talking about here, but at least if you have the basic knowledge, I'm gonna show you some tools that can make easier to discover those issues, to test it, and also to build empathy with the person who will be particularly affected by the problem that you find. We're gonna be talking about GitLab UI components and how it is a good shortcut to build accessible features at GitLab. The third topic is gonna be about remembering about the small screens and also devices with low performance or in places with slow networks when you are building your features. This is something that is always good to keep in mind. And the last topic is gonna be about the product accessibility working group, which is Paulina is the functional lead. She's here with us. It's an initiative to help make the GitLab product and other websites more accessible. Yeah, so let's start with the first topic. Accessibility audits. By the way, auditing is just a very loaded word, but it's just it's not as boring as it seems. But it's just all about doing a systematic examination of the web application, and then we can identify which are the issues that they have, and then document them and finally fix them. Usually when we are authoring a merge request and when we are reviewing a merge request, it's very difficult to think about accessibility. And I'm gonna say it it's on my own experience. We have so many quality attributes to think about, so many abilities like performance or maintainability, etc., etc. So nevertheless, I'm gonna recommend that you have to do your audits on every merge request that you author and the ones that you're reviewing. But there will be times where you have a lot of pressure. So I would like to add a third option, and it's just doing independent audits. So if you are, for example, a front-end engineer in your group, or any engineer or any role that is working directly with the product, you could take maybe dedicate some time or create a personal OKR or a group of OKR and say, I'm gonna do an accessibility audit in the features that I'm maintaining. And then I'm gonna discover some accessibility issues are critical. I'm gonna create issues for them and I'm gonna try to fix them. So this is something that you can that we could embrace as part of our development process. And how do we do these audits? So this is where the fun part, the fun process starts. And is that I'm gonna recommend 4 steps. The first one is that we're gonna be using an automated auditing tool that is gonna be just like identifying issues in an automated way without us testing the application manually. If that tool identifies an issue, we're gonna test the problem on our own. And this is gonna again like give us like some sort of empathy of why this is a problem. Because like usually these problems, we see the report and then we don't understand why this is critical because like we are not like having any impact from it. The third step is reporting and documenting the problem in an issue, and finally getting some time to fix it. Or like we can just like merge these two and just like fix the issue directly. So yeah, let's do that. Let's just like I'm gonna do a little demo where I'm gonna use a tool to identify issues in the GitLab application, and then we're gonna try like to reproduce that issue on our own manual. So let's go to the GitLab application. Let's open gitlab.com. So we are here in the GitLab app, and I'm gonna open Chrome Developer Tools. So first, Chrome comes with a built-in tool to evaluate accessibility that is called Lighthouse. It evaluates other things, so you can just like go and say, analyze this page, and it's gonna run a test here. Hopefully, it's not gonna take too long. It's like really going through it, and it's gonna give you a score. It's gonna give you like some issues here, like there are some buttons without without an accessible name, which is completely true, or some images that don't have like an alternative text for people with visual disabilities. So this is really good. This issue in particular is the one that we're interested in. But there is an alternative tool that I prefer because it is, in my opinion, way I don't know, like it's like easier to use, and I really like the structure of the reports. And it's called Xcore, X DevTools. So first, X is a set of utilities that is based on an accessibility engine. This accessibility engine is capable basically of scanning a page and identifying accessibility issues. So we have the engine, and the DevTools is pretty much like a user interface implemented as a Chrome extension. So you can build it you can use it in your web browser. So I'm gonna run again another test using this tool. And it's gonna go like through a similar process. And it's gonna give us also it's gonna give us like, as you can see, like there are, this one is reporting more issues than Lighthouse, and it's gonna categorize them by critical, serious, or minor issues. So let's go to the critical issues, and let's understand why this is critical. So it says that buttons must have a discernible text. Something that is very useful is the highlight function. So if you click this button here, you're gonna see that it's pointing to the element that has a problem. It says that this button doesn't have any text. So then, like from the point of view of a user like me, who is just like using the mouse and keyboard and is capable of like seeing this interface, I don't see any problem. Like this is the notification button that I always use to mute all the projects. I'm kidding. I don't mute the projects. But like, who is this problem? Like, who is suffering? Like, who is suffering with this problem? probably like if this doesn't have a name, an accessible name, the main the main type of user is someone who is using a tool like VoiceOver. Someone who cannot like use mouse and keyboard and cannot see the UI. So the second step when identifying an issue is manually testing the problem and building that empathy with the user. So what I'm gonna do is just that I'm gonna turn on VoiceOver on my Mac. I'm gonna try to understand how what would happen if I focus on this element while using VoiceOver. I don't know if I can share the audio of my sorry if I can share the audio of my computer. Is that possible? Leave computer audio. I don't know. I've never done this in Zoom.
I think when you share the screen, Enrique, you have an option to share the audio as well. So maybe stop sharing and restart, and there's an option there for you to enable the audio sharing as well.
Oh, yeah, share sound. Thank you, Andre. So it says mono or stereo, high fidelity. So I think that if I turn it on and I just share again, yeah, that should work. Thank you so much. So let's try. Let's like turn on VoiceOver.
Link. Skip to main content. Link. Skip to main
Can
content.
you hear that?
Primary navigation.
Awesome.
Heading level 2. Primary navigation.
So
Visited.
I'm gonna try like to go directly here.
Collapsed button. You are currently on a button.
And I'm gonna
display
move
a list of options. Press Control.
this popover that is displayed by
Paul
VoiceOver.
Slaughter, front-end engineer to everyone.
I'm not an expert in VoiceOver, so this is just like continue playing here. But what I want to focus on this one.
Button.
Okay.
You are currently on a button. To display a list of options, press Control Option Space.
Do you see like if I go again,
menu pop-up collapsed.
You will see that it just says menu pop-up collapse button. It doesn't tell you
messages.
It doesn't tell you what this button is, what is its purpose. It just like, so that's like someone like who is not vident, like they wouldn't like understand what is the purpose of this, and it would be like very confusing. So that's the reason that X is telling you that this is a critical issue and that it should be fixed. I'm gonna just like turn VoiceOver off, and I'm gonna show you a third tool that is very useful when you are trying like to fix these problems and debug them. So let's go to the Elements screen in Chrome Developer Tools. Let's open the Accessibility tab here in the Elements section. So there is a tool when web browsers render a page, they also create a tree structure that is called the accessibility tree. And the purpose of the accessibility tree is providing a lot of information to tools like VoiceOver, so they can just like navigate through the web page. Also, like the speech tools can indicate like and print the labels of each element in the web page. So it's very useful, and we can go to the to inspect this element. And you will see that this button element doesn't have an accessible name. So this is the reason. Usually, like when you are having like these buttons that only display an icon to mouse users, you want to provide an area label. So there is like an alternative way of accessing this component when you are using a tool like VoiceOver. So yeah, like using the accessibility tree is a more convenient way of linking the process of like identifying this issue and then understanding why the issue is happening. Like once you have like you identify this problem, you can either create an issue or just like open a merge request and fix a problem.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure, sure.
So like a few buttons down after unstar is 4,759. And I can imagine how sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like sometimes text is there, but it's also not helpful, like because it's missing all sorts of context. Because if I saw a button called unstar and then I hear another text 4,759, I have no idea what that means. Has this been unstarred 4,759 times, or I don't know?
That's right. That's right. And that's the reason that automated tools are not enough to build an accessible website. You really have like to have like there is a lot of context involved, and you really have like to see the web application used from a completely different kind of view. That's a great observation, Paul. So yeah, it's just like the tool that we just saw, XDev tools, it's really cool because like you can detect some issues without manual inspection. Like for someone like me who is just getting started with accessibility, it's a cool way to identify problems without having a lot of knowledge about accessibility. It has a very intuitive interface. But the main disadvantages is that first, I think that it can detect some false positives. Like some of the issues that appeared in there when I did the test previously, and I look at it with more details, were indicating that some elements were the user could access to them by using tab navigation, but I couldn't do it in practice. So I guess that could be just like a false positive. And the other disadvantage of these kind of tools is that they cannot detect all of the issues. On average, they can only detect 59% of issues. I usually like as the point that you mentioned, Paul, is that there are issues that are just like impossible to identify by automation. Maybe like now, maybe with AI, right? With some tools like based on artificial intelligence, they could be like we could improve those results. But that's a big issue. It's just like they are very limited so far.
If I can add something, it's also
Sure.
like it scans the page that is right now what you can see, but if there's elements that you open, like models, yeah, any collapsible elements that will show up after the user interaction, the tool is not able to scan it before it gets opened by us. So that's another thing, like there might be hidden elements on the page that will not get scanned. So that number can then even get lower, from like 59 to lower.
That's right. Like web applications are very complex. There are like so many possible states when you combine all the possible interactions that you can do, that the results they can be discouraging. So let's go to my second point, that is embracing pajamas and GitLab UI. So why am I encouraging this? First, we've been working for years on implementing this design system and also this UI components library that is based in the component system. And there are many good people that have a lot of knowledge of accessibility that has done amazing work on it. First, I think that let's like go through all the benefits. The first one is that we have really good accessibility guidelines besides the ones that we have in the documentation. So if you go to design.gitlab.com and you open any of the components, let's say the button component, you will see that at the end of the documentation, each component has some accessibility guidelines of how you have to use it. So this is like really good to have in mind when we are using a component library. Like in this context, like there are some issues that we just kind of like implement something in the component to make it always accessible. Like usage of the component is as important as how we build it. So it's really important to always have in mind what is the right way of using a UI component to keep it like to make it accessible. The other advantages is that GitLab UI components are built with color contrast in mind. You don't have to care about that. They usually we care a lot about keyboard navigation. And we also think about all the possible interactive states, how the component looks when it's when the user is hovering over it, where it's disabled, when it is active, etc. So yeah, this is like a good shortcut, not to think about all of that, just use a well-built component and you are getting all of these benefits out of the box. So just I'm gonna give you a quick demo of comparing GitLab UI component against a version of tabs that is already implemented in the GitLab application. So I'm gonna go to my to-do list. And I'm gonna just use my keyboard navigation to go to the tabs here. And I'm gonna activate voiceover again.
Link. Skip to main content. Link. Skip to main visited. Link. To do 12. List 2 items. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space.
So when I focus on the tab element, it's gonna tell me that I'm just in a to-do link. It doesn't give me any cues about how I can navigate between the two tabs. It doesn't even tell me that it is a tab. So if we had a little bit more of semantics here, it would be easier to understand how I should use this application. Also, with a well-designed tab element, tab component, I could use the arrow keys to navigate between the tabs, the left and right arrows. So this is something that is not implemented in this component. I'm gonna disable the voiceover again. I'm gonna go to the tab component in GitLab UI. Let's open the default example. Let's enable voiceover.
Navigation. No act. Tab 1. Selected. Tab 1 of 14. Storybook preview iframe. Group. Tab 1. Selected. Tab 1 of 14. Tab 2.
So as you can see,
tab 14.
first
tab
I can
tab
use
2.
keyword
tab
navigation to navigate between the tabs. But
You
also when you're using voiceover, it's telling you that it's a tab.
Selected. Tab 2 of 14.
And it's telling you that
You are
you're
currently on a
navigating between
selected
tabs.
tab 2 of 14.
So that's very
Inside the
useful if
frame.
you're just
To exit
using
this web
keyword
area,
navigation
press
and
Control,
you are
Option,
you're
Shift,
not
up
a
arrow.
mouse user.
Voiceover off.
And this is just one of the examples. If you compare with other components, you will see that you are getting a lot of benefits. My third point is about small screens and slow networks. In this point, I just want to point out that, particularly in the create stage, we have some applications that are inevitably large and complex, like the web ID. So the use case matters a lot. We have the web ID in this case has a really large bundle size, but it's an integrated development environment. So we have to understand that context matters. Nevertheless, I want to promote some tools that we have implemented over the years at GitLab. The first one is the bundle size report. So recently, and I thought I had this open here. Let's see. Did I close the tab suddenly? Bundle size. I think that I closed this, but we have a really nice tool. Oh yeah. So Paul, a couple of weeks ago, he took notice that the bundle size report in the web ID for a merge request that updated the web ID package reported that the bundle size had grown significantly. 43 kilobytes in a single upgrade. Why did this happen? So we've been implementing a language server that is like a separate component to run our code suggestions feature. By just like looking at this report, this created a lead that allows us to identify that we were including unnecessary assets in the bundle file for the web ID. So something that you can do, like when you're doing code reviews or authoring MRs, you should like pay close attention to this, because sometimes it gives you like very useful information that can lead you to keep your features with a low with a smaller size. Finally, we have the Chrome developer tools to test smaller screens. I think that's something that that I'm always doing. It's very useful and also like very fun to just go to the Chrome developer tools, click here on the I don't know how do they call this. Oh, the total device toolbar. So this is where is it though? Well, for some reason I lost this. Oh yeah, I have to use it here. But I always try to see how the application looks in different viewports. This gives you an idea that, oh, maybe I have to apply responsive design here. I know that as well, like complex applications like the web ID won't work on smaller screens, but I'm always opening GitLab from my phone. And it's very useful when I just can use it quickly and efficiently. So I really encourage you to pay attention to it. Every time that you're implementing a feature, make sure that you are taking in consideration a smart, like smaller devices. And last point, but not least important, is help the product accessibility working group. So this is an initiative that I started this year. The goal is that we want to, well, the main goal obviously is just like improving the accessibility of the GitLab product application and like the other websites related to GitLab. And we are doing this by automating these accessibility checks. So you notice that we were using the XDev tools that is based on a accessibility engine. We are using this accessibility engine to implement automated tests for GitLab UI components and for the GitLab application. Even though it cannot identify all the possible issues, it's still like very beneficial, because first, like, we can avoid regressions in the future for the issues that it can detect. If we run it and the test fails, then we know that we have to fix something in the application. Then, like, once we start like discovering these accessibility violations, like we want to build a comprehensive list that is like easy to navigate, and so everyone can contribute on making the GitLab application more accessible. You can find us on the product accessibility work Slack channel. Just like go to that channel, see what we are doing. You can also find the working group page with all of the goals, like in more details, and also the HQ Epic, where you can see what is our work in progress and what we are currently doing. I want to give you a small test, a small demo of how we are automating the test for accessibility. I'm gonna give you a demo of GitLab UI. There is the area where I've been working the most so far. So I'm gonna open GitLab UI. And we are running the X accessibility engine using Cypress, because like since Cypress is an end-to-end test runner, we can detect problems like color contrast in the application, and also in GitLab UI components. So I'm gonna run Cypress. Then I go to the end-to-end test library. I'm gonna select from here, and I'm gonna start the test suite. So if I go here to the labels and select the label component, you will see that it's gonna start like running a test for labels in many states, like when the label is hovered, when the label is active, when it is selected. And what we want to do is just like making sure that the label component is accessible in all of those possible contexts. And it's like just like passing those standard accessibility tests that exist in the accessibility core engine. So let's look closely to the results. You can see that here we have like some assertions in green, and it says 0 accessibility violations were detected in the test. So that just means that for that state, we didn't find any problems with the component, and that's something that that is true for for most GitLab UI components. Something that was like very annoying to Paulina. It's like we're implementing all of this, but then like we are not finding any issues. That's like very boring. But let me give you a quick look at how we are implementing these tests. So we are trying to build them in a way that is very easy for a community contributor, maybe outside of GitLab, that is not a GitLab engineer, to go and just like pick an issue. We are relying on the history book API to just indicate in the URL which is the state of the component that we want to test. For example, we want to test the label component, but we want to use a dark background. Then we have this check accessibility command in Cypress. That when you run it, it's gonna run the same list of tests that we were running with the Chrome plugin. And we're just like collecting all of these tests, running it, and if they pass, like we are good with the label components. That's what we are doing in GitLab UI. But also like Paulina has been doing a lot of amazing work in the GitLab application. Oops, that sadly appeared in our recording, but like I think that all of us worry about that this week, right? So okay, this is the Chrome plug, the Chrome Cypress. So I'm gonna just like close Cypress here. And let's go back to the presentation. You can find more information about how to write automated accessibility tests for the GitLab application as well. So we've integrated the same Xcore in Capybara, and what you can do is just like write a test where you visit one of the pages and you run the X assertion, and it's gonna give you also an identify issues. You can filter those tests by indicating specifically which of the guidelines you want to target, or which elements and subsets of the page you want to test. And it's super useful, and I think that the goal that we have right now is going through the feature specs that we already have implemented and adding these assertions, and based on the issues that we identify, create those issues and start to fixing them. So yeah, this is pretty much my knowledge sharing session about accessibility. And I don't know, like, let's jump to QA on your slide chat about this. What do you think?
I have I have a thought. It's clearly this would be, I think, more lovable if it was used more, if in our day to day, but because, we don't usually find ourselves using accessibility features, they go obviously overlooked. Is there a way for users that run into accessibility issues? Can we think of a way to improve the pipeline of them, notifying those issues for our team to pick up? If I run across a button, if I'm using accessibility features and I run across a button that's not, clear at all. Right now, there's a lot of friction to just creating a GitLab issue. And it's like, maybe there's a better way to a quicker way to make it more lovable for end users to give us feedback on that kind of stuff.
I don't know. What do you think, Paulina?
Well, we certainly have issues from users. The problem I see is also that we have a lot of duplicated issues about accessibility, because one user will describe a couple of problems they ran into in one issue, the other one in the other, and some of those issues might be the same. And if it's like 3 issues from 3 different feature areas that we have, they will also should fall into 3 different teams. So yeah, that's really frustrating, and I can see that on issues that are like 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years old, and they sometimes very easy fixes. But I agree, we don't have a good pipeline for fixing that. I don't know if I have an answer.
Yeah, it's just an idea. I think that would be interesting. But it's neat also having a report, maybe just, generating weekly reports for groups and product managers to be aware of. This is how your page is scoring. Maybe that would be interesting too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I also think like the session like Enrique just did and sharing it within the company would be very helpful, because I feel, and I sometimes see that there is a misconception that because the GitLab UI covers accessibility pretty much, that's enough for the platform to be accessible, which is not true. And we don't have tools that will ensure that engineers use those UI components in a correct way. So like a lot of work from the UI team is just goes into just is missing from the actual platform, because we don't have tools to make it easy. So I think there's lots of things that can be implemented on the side of linting, for example, or SamGrep that we use for tests can be also used for within the components and testing if they use the attributes that they should be using. I think the core of the problem is it's the responsibility of making GitLab accessible is so dispersed between people, teams, and roles. We don't have a process or a structure that will make it easier to see it through from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, I think as an iteration, I can see it, bringing more visibility to it from product managers and the like can help it get more prioritized. If, alongside whatever weekly, error rates people receive, if people can also receive, and here's your accessibility, score. Not like that means the same as the error rate, but just like, I don't think product managers are, I think they just know, oh yeah, it's a nice to have. I'm sure that's how they view it. And it'd be nice to make them more aware of it. Maybe even something to be proud of too, of like, oh, our pages are, you know, we're in the B+ zone of we've left F, we're at C-, and that's beating all you all.
I like the idea of automating reports per group and you know, similar to the error rates and stuff that we have, incident, and you know, monitor those and see how we're doing. I mean, at least that way we have a baseline, and then we know whether the teams are going up or down, right? Yeah.
Right now, that's like the most challenging part for the working group, because we have like to build these reporting tools. We need to identify where do we run the test. Like currently, we decided to do it inside the picture specs. Like there are so many picture specs that sometimes cover the same page, and it's difficult to identify where we are gonna put the test, and then how we can translate that into a meaningful report that is easier for non-technical users to consume. So that I would say that's the problem that we are trying to solve right now, and it's definitely challenging. Like we don't know if we will have to duplicate the entire QA pipeline of navigating through the application to start running the test, or if we have like to integrate it with something that already exists. It's very complex in an application that is as big as GitLab.
This could be outside the CI pipeline. You know, this like we need to kind of separate out two things, right? One is that we could have linting rules, of course, in the CI pipeline, which run pretty quickly and can pick up whether you do like ARIA labels, right? But then I think this could run like outside the CI pipeline and just send a, you know, monthly report or something to the teams, or a weekly report to the team, say, hey, you registered these as your pages, right? And these are the issues you've seen. These are the issues that we have, and these are critical, these are high, or whatever. And so, you know, it would be not destructive, like it's not in the pipeline, but it's still, you still have the report to show people that you know this is your accessibility coverage.
I think a separate project is my favorite way that we do these reporting stuff. A separate project with a, you know, with a pipeline that runs on a cron, but then it's not baked into every single pipeline run, or we have to run a master or something. And like, but we could even hit like dev or staging GitLab.com. You know, we don't even have to have the pipeline run GitLab like the QA pipeline does. We can just, well, I guess QA pipeline probably, but anyways, I was just thinking, you could probably build Cypress to just hit staging, and we can make, you know, whatever kind of changes we want there.
Yeah, we use that for SiteSense and for site speed for some performance tests. We do test some things in staging, and just to get the evolution of that. I wanted to share some thoughts on the previously mentioned topic about a support pipeline for users to report the problems. I think our product is far more important to us than it is for our users, right? So the people that are suffering through a button that doesn't have a label, you just skip it, don't use it, because they can't really inspect it. So they just go on, even though they're technically minded. I was thinking that perhaps we could come up with some community contributor roles to specifically identify people in the community to be like champions of accessibility or something, that we could invite them to, you know, some training sessions with us, and we can give some documentation on how we'd like to have those reports being given, just to make that a little bit more effective, because it's the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the users will find 80% of the problems. So if we can find champions around in the community that are interested in this, we could potentially get a much better help and not burden the people that were already like forcing to use a flawed product. So what do you think? Have we ever done something like this?
Not in my case. So it's a really good idea. We have other champions for other areas in the core team. So I think it's very useful to build that kind of I don't know, community. around it.
Yeah,
I
that sounds
read
like
something that Jeremy, sorry, I read something that Jeremy on an issue, or Paulina was mentioning, that they had reports from a user on Mastodon or something. So potentially we can find people that.
Oh, you said Mastodon. Yeah.
Okay. Something stop. Yeah, and so there are people interested in these topics that could potentially be GitLab users, and you could potentially reach out through that kind of like past experience. But anyway, Paul, you want to say something? Sorry.
No, I was just saying, like, yeah, our contributor success team, I think this is a, whole opportunity of onboarding contributors. These are very solvable problems, and there's a whole scope of issues that need to be found. Like this sounds like a for people wanting to contribute to GitLab and not really sure where to start. This is a treasure trove of places to start. So I think the contributor success team, I'm next time I see Lee, I'll bring it up to him. But I know he's doing so much, but they would be great to loop in.
Paulina, do you think this would be a good task for the working group to look into, like these community contributor roles, or is it outside of the scope?
It could be, yeah. We had it on the horizon. So right now we prepared a couple of issues within GitLab UI for the December hackathon. With the application, it's a bit more complicated because of it's sometimes very hard if you don't know the area to pick up the feature test that needs the test to be implemented. Also know where which view is that and like the scope of it. So yeah, we have a couple of issues that are targeted by the paper cuts this milestone. Like we need feedback from people from outside the working group. That's what we prepared as a process makes sense and it's not just like too hard to go through.
So maybe mature the internal process first before we
yes, exactly.
recruit people, but yes, definitely something for later on. Okay.
Yeah.
I had one more thought then. So one of the things that sometimes happens in accessibility efforts is that we focus a lot on these guidelines that focus a specific kind of disability, which is blind users that use assistive technology like screen readers. But not that covers a huge part of users that need support and that have barriers. But how can we include like other types of disabilities in these checks? And I'm thinking about like motor impaired, temporary and permanent, where a lot of button navigation is not comfortable, right? Or I don't know, is there anything that you've seen in this sort of tools that could potentially assess? One of the things that I've seen in the past is the size of button elements is really critical for some people that use virtual keyboards and virtual mouse movers and stuff, that it just means that the buttons need to be large enough for them to be easily acquired. Like that's the Fitts law. Has anybody seen anything like this in these tools that could potentially go beyond the blind users and help other kinds of users?
Well, with the Axe, they've and that engine, they focus mostly on the things that can be automated. I think probably the UX department would have more into that. I know they have well, they have accessibility in mind. They have how do you call it, artifacts. And they might have tools. I don't know how they have Figma integrated with like outside tools, maybe that help them.
Yeah, I think this falls into like the color contrast for colorblind folks. I feel like it falls into that sort of like
yes
tooling and concerns.
Yeah. I don't know if I can say anything more about it, like except that I saw issues they're working on, for example, with the color contrast, actually switching to another algorithm for calculating that. That's algorithm is coming with WCAG 3.0 in the future, but they're thinking about using that when designing already. Yeah.
Thanks. Those were my thoughts.
I have one more. Like from what you started with, Enrique, like building this mindset and empathy, we should also remember that we're not only developing GitLab, but we also users, and like a lot of things that we do is actually writing comments and descriptions within GitLab that are read by the whole community, and there's also a place where you can put a bit of effort to make it more accessible. So things like alt text for images, like we put lots of screenshots, and our default is to put the file name as alt text, but it's super easy to change that. With video recording, it's the same. That we put the file name, but you can just write one sentence describing what's on the video, what's on the screenshot, and it's simple things, but yeah, that way we make sure that anyone that's reading our comments and issues can actually get all the context.
That's definitely challenging. Yeah, it's like it's very common to take that shortcut. Like explaining visually is easy for people who can see. So yeah, I think that it's very useful if you can just like make the effort and try like to truly describe and provide. I think that's even like part of our operating principles as a company. Try to work in a low context way. So try to provide as much information as possible. Maybe we can just like frame it from that point of view, not just like in terms like of providing less images and like a very well written description in your comments.
I love. Oh,
sorry, go Paul. Go ahead.
XKCD and videos that hide, jokes and the alt text and all sorts of things like that. There's a whole world of, this is the deep web. All the alt text media.
Now I want to just like use voiceover over a month and start just like going to Reddit and places like that. What's behind the web?
I was going to share that we're having an effort on the groups of source code and code review about a new diff architecture workflow, and Pauline has helped us with identifying the points on the standards that the guideline standards that we'd like to fulfill, and some of them that came up was a lot about support the users in creating accessible content. And this went directly to the content editor, where when you're writing content on a box, on a comment, you add an image, and you submit it, and you haven't submitted a proper text with the image, like we could potentially stop them. Hey, would you like to take some time and write a description for that text, for that image? And there's a bunch of like videos with captions and stuff like that, with subtitles and stuff. There's a bunch of things that we could potentially improve the tooling to help our users be more mindful of it. I mean, they can still skip it and ignore it, but there's a whole world of features to be built on the editor of comments and description, or the markdown editor, I guess. That's what we were potentially targeting outside of the scope of our project. But if anybody wants to take a look at that conversation, I'm going to put the link here on Zoom, just for everybody to take a look. And great job, Pauline, on that. Thanks.
Thanks.
Really amazing. Thank you.
All right, I think we're at time now. Appreciate everyone joining here. Enrique, again, thank you so much for conducting this. This has been great. I think it's a topic that everyone should be aware about, and we'll try to distribute this as widely as possible. So thank you.
No, thank you for setting up, Shekar, and thanks everyone for participating. Because this was like a really great discussion after the knowledge sharing session. So I really appreciate it.
Right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
Enrique. Thanks, Shekar.